What a year 2023 was. There were so many games. Too many games. Some are calling it the best year in gaming. I call it one of the most overwhelming years in gaming. Never have I missed a down year so much. That, and I started this here YouTube channel like an insane person. But hey, no longer does the fam need to hear my ramblings, because I have you all. He will never shut up. Mom? Anyway, I thought I'd share my favorite games of 2023 with you all. I remember January like it was yesterday. New year, new me. Or at least that's what they say. Hi, 2023? Yes? How are you here? I am determined to be the greatest year you have ever experienced in gaming. Oh, cool. I got some big ones for you this month. Cool. But listen, I don't really need to hear about every single game. I have very specific tastes. Yes, I know. You're an RPG nut, and you have some other tastes as well, and you typically gravitate towards games that will never be chosen for Game of the Year. I got you. Hey! Now finish up Chained Echoes and Crisis Core so we can get to the good stuff. I'm going to cheat a bit here and talk about Chained Echoes. I could wax poetic, of course, about Crisis Core Reunion and how it's one of those incredible examples of remasters done right on the edge of a remake, but Chained Echoes really blew my mind. This game dropped at an odd time during the year, making it very easy to overlook with games received for Christmas and the upcoming January games, but if you're an RPG fan, you have to check this one out. This is one of those love letter indie games that makes references to games like Chrono Trigger, Xenogears, Secret of Mana, etc. And yet it stands as a unique take with an overdrive battle system, forcing players to think about which skills they want to use to maximize attack and defense, or if they want to take the risk and take more damage. You also get to do mech battles, which was a lot of fun, and the environments, music, story far exceeded anything I would expected. I think the music and the story are where this game really shines. It hit like I did not expect with some of the backstories of the characters, some of the ambitions of the main characters as they unfold. Matthias Linde, the creator of this game, did an incredible job crafting something familiar yet completely new. It's definitely something you don't want to miss. Alright, now for January, let's start with Persona 4 Golden. I've played that. On Switch? That is compelling. Fine. Forspoken. Actually don't play that. Okay, it's Square Enix. How bad can it be? Do I look like 2006 to you? How about Hi-Fi Rush? It's a bit of a niche title, but it's music related. I think you'll like it. Oh, that looks amazing, but it's for the Xbox Series. I don't have an Xbox. Do I want an Xbox? Probably. Okay, fine. I know you would probably pick this one, but how about Fire Emblem Engage? That's the one! Fire Emblem Engage, baby! Fire Emblem Engage ended up being one of my favorite games of 2023. I'll say up front that I still think Fire Emblem Three Houses is the better overall experience, but this game has hands down some of the best game mechanics in the series. This game is basically an anniversary game for the Fire Emblem series as you play with characters from across the entire franchise, who show up as emblems, sometimes playing on original maps and remixes of the original music. The gameplay revolves around emblems, which are characters from the franchise that can give your characters powerful stat boosts when engaged for a few turns. It created some really interesting variation to the strategy of the game, as you can be a bit more risky by sending characters in and buffing them up with the engage mechanic. That, combined with some cool new maps, a hub where you can get supports, train your characters, and a Sacred Stone style world map where you can do extra battles and grind, and you have yourself one fantastic Fire Emblem experience. And the story wasn't too bad. There were some twists and turns, but I do have to say I'm not the biggest fan of the tonal and aesthetic shift from Three Houses. Don't get me wrong, the graphics themselves are objectively higher quality, but Three Houses took a slightly more grounded aesthetic. You can tell this one was heavily influenced by the Fire Emblem Heroes games, which, like most gacha games, has more of a focus on keeping you engaged with eye candy rather than substance. So I hope the next Fire Emblem game strikes a better balance on that front. And what have you done to Lynn?
Maybe one day I'll chop food with my blade.
Why would you do this? All that said, it's not hard to love this game. The maps, classes, skills, and emblems were a blast to mix and match, and I absolutely did insane grinding to break this game. It's fun to take characters like Kagetsu and turn him into a critical beast with like 85% critical chance. And you better believe I breezed through that ending. I hope you're almost done with Fire Emblem, because I have a few more that I think you're gonna like. Wow, already? Awesome. What are we looking at? First of all, I'm gonna surprise you with Metroid Prime Remastered looking like one of the best games on the Switch. Yo, no kidding. That looks amazing. That, or you get Tales of Symphonia Remastered. Oh man, I loved that game. Good, yeah. But it's, 30 FPS, unlike the GameCube version, and there wasn't a lot of effort put into this one. Why would you do this to me? And next up, we have Digimon World Next Order and Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Aha, a bunch of remasters. You're speaking my language. Yeah, so go ahead and buy all of those. And then there's Theatrhythm Final Bar Line and Octopath Traveler 2. Why didn't you start with those? The Theatrhythm games are not talked about enough. These games are celebrations of the Final Fantasy franchise in the best way, and Theatrhythm Final Bar Line takes it to the next level. This is a rhythm game completely made from all of the Final Fantasy series tracks, including many of the side games, remakes, and even Advent Children. You get songs from games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy Record Keeper, Dissidia, and a bunch of others. Well, with the exception of Final Fantasy XVI, which was available as DLC. And it is absolute bliss to play this game. And I don't know why, but I am a sucker for the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles soundtrack. While the game may not have been that popular, the soundtrack is still one of my favorite in gaming. And the gameplay is so addicting with multiple types of levels. Some are field traversal, while others are battles. Then it can get downright crazy with these FMV movies that play as you're trying to stick to the rhythm. They're harder because they're super distracting if you're like me and you want to watch the scene as you're trying to play the game. But it is so good. You also unlock characters from each of the games as you progress through the campaign, which is essentially this magical journey through the game's progressions via the music. And you can bring a party from that game along to level up, or you can just mix and match your favorites. Personally, Cloud and Vivi are always showing up on my teams, and the gameplay ends up being way more fun than you expect. If you really get into it, they've also included DLC that adds music from games like Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Secret of Mana, Xenogears, The World Ends With You, Nier, Live Alive, and even Octopath Traveler. The list goes on. To me, this is probably one of the most underrated gems of 2023. And if you're a Final Fantasy fan, you should absolutely check this one out. Speaking of Octopath Traveler, Octopath Traveler 2 was another game that came out in February, and I'll tell you what, I was rushing to finish Fire Emblem so that I could play this game. Octopath Traveler was an amazing return to form for Square Enix when it came out in 2018. The new HD 2D design was a breath of fresh air while remaining nostalgic, and it created a desire in every retro RPG fan like myself for even more. More Octopath, sure, but let's apply this aesthetic to other classics. Chrono Trigger, anybody? And they took the HD 2D a step further with Octopath Traveler 2. It is beautiful. As a follow-up to the first one, this feels like the definitive version in many ways of the story, the music, the gameplay, and the series. You follow the path of 8 different characters with their own motivations and challenges prompting their journey, and it culminates in this epic conclusion. Honestly, the music alone in this game is a sell point for me. The soundtrack was unbelievable, and it does a great job maintaining each individual character, even from themes that are very similar. And some of the twists and turns of the storyline were really interesting as well. It's very clear that Square focused on addressing some of the feedback from the first one, and they really stepped up their game by integrating the stories more and adding side chapters that send the characters on, combined with side missions, culminating in the conclusion of the game that has them all actually interacting as a whole unit. No longer does it feel like this fragmented experience like the first one. Even the villain story arcs play off of each other. Now, my personal favorites were Hikari, Temenos, and Oswald. I loved them all, but these paths got dark and weird. And Temenos, being this like priest detective, was pretty unique and interesting. But all the characters were great, and this is a definite must play if you missed it. You're gonna ignore all of the awesome games coming out in March, aren't you? Bro, there are 8 paths. Not even Trails of Azure? You beat Trails from Zero, right? Unbelievable. How about Paranormasight, The 7 Mysteries of Honjo? Resident Evil 4 remake? The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog? See you in April, buddy. Oh man, that was a good one. All right, 2023, you were saying something about the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog? It's too late. Whoa! Surely you'll play one of these this month. I have Mega Man, I have Advance Wars, I have Live Alive, I have Trinity Trigger. Man, all of these look so good. I think I'll start with the, wait a minute. What's that? Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters are coming this month. 2023, what is that? Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters are coming to the Switch. Final Fantasy VI, baby! Oh man, the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters. Now these have technically been out for a while on Steam, but I had no idea they were this good. I just kind of assumed they cleaned up the sprite work and went away from the previous re-released art style that they had, but these are amazing remasters. Coming to the Switch with a physical copy was what enticed me to check this out, and I'm so glad I did. I'm not going to spend too much time going through each individual game because that would take forever, but I did check out 4 and 6 in particular. First off, the gameplay itself has a number of features to speed it up, things like experience boosts, money boosts, turning off random encounters, etc. So if you're looking to check these older games out but don't want to invest hundreds of hours like the original, you can really speed up the experience. But that's not really my favorite part. My favorite part was the music. Holy smokes, the music was redone and it is so good. This stuff is iconic, and the effort they put into this music just brought these games to life in a whole new way. One of the best examples of this is the opera scene from Final Fantasy VI. If you're not familiar with that, it's a very famous scene from Final Fantasy VI where the characters get caught up in this opera. One of the characters, Celis, takes on one of the parts and has to actually sing, and there's this whole thing. Anyway, they added actual vocals to the score and redid the entire scene in an HD 2D art style. It was amazing. I almost felt like I needed to create a save point before that just so I can go back and do it again. Good thing we have YouTube, right? But if you're a Final Fantasy fan, you have to check these out at some point on some platform because you will not be disappointed. My only complaint, I'd love to have seen them go all in on the HD 2D aesthetic for Final Fantasy VI, but for now, I'm pretty content, especially with the remaster of things like Shadow's theme. I don't know why, but I love that song so much. That was amazing, 2023. Thank you. Yeah. Now I bet you're gonna ditch all these other amazing game recommendations for some stupid Xenoblade DLC. Future Redeemed is here, let's go! When Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out with their DLC, Torn of the Golden Country, I thought it would be an extra fun romp in the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 world and lore, but it ended up being a full-on game, and a really good one. Then they came out with a physical copy, and it totally made sense. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC, no physical copy. And as much as that pains me, I still have to talk about Future Redeemed, because once again, it is a full-on game, and I would argue it's one of the best Xenoblade Chronicles games, period. This is like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 without the fluff. And as much as the base game might stand as one of my all-time favorite Switch games, this was very welcome. The pacing was perfect. They added a number of collectibles, faster ways to enhance characters. Every minute of this DLC was an absolute delight to play. And the story? Oh my goodness, they absolutely nailed the impact of this story for people who played through the entire trilogy. The music tells as much of the story as the characters do, and bringing back Rex and Shulk was incredible. That and Rex is completely broken and incredibly fun to play. And there were some massive lore dumps here, which created lots of speculation about connections to Xenosaga and or possibly Xenogears, neither of which, unfortunately, I have played. I know, how can someone be such a Xenoblade nut and never have played one of these? In short, I didn't know I loved RPGs until a friend of mine told me to shut up, sit down, and play Final Fantasy VIII. By that point, I had missed Xenogears and had no idea what Xenosaga was. But that is going to change this year, at least for Xenogears. So subscribe and keep an eye on the channel. Anyway, do not skip this one. In fact, don't skip any of the Xenoblade games. They are incredible. 2 could be a little bit weird, but worth getting through. Are you done messing with DLC? Are you ready for some real games? All right. What you got, homie? I have a bunch, but let's just cut to the chase. Tears of the Kingdom. You're catching on! But out of curiosity, what were those other games? Hogwarts Legacy, Fuga Melodies of Steel 2, The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails, Lord of the Rings Gollum? Interesting. Going to play Zelda now. You should really play Gollum, though. Because I hate you.
What was that?
Oh, nothing. See you next year.
Is it any surprise that I played and loved this game? Tears of the Kingdom is in its own category of greatness. One of the reasons I love the Switch so much is because of the experience that I had with Breath of the Wild. I got this bad boy at launch, and initially I played it on the TV because my brain expected games like Breath of the Wild to be a console experience. But when we had a trip to see my family, and I brought it with Mario plus Rabbids, and it was wild, pun fully intended, to see a game like this in my hands. Fast forward to Tears of the Kingdom, and the feeling was the same. They somehow managed to take it up to the next level with this game and completely blow my expectations. There's some people online that like to poo-poo this game and say it's just Breath of the Wild DLC, but have you played Tears of the Kingdom and then gone back to Breath of the Wild? No sky, no underground, no fuse mechanic. This game makes Breath of the Wild feel small somehow. And that's not because there's anything wrong with Breath of the Wild. This is one of those games that I feel that every Switch owner should have. You could put hundreds of hours into this game, just exploring all the new areas. The story was much better than its predecessor, in my opinion, and that finale was so awesome. This is easily a 10 out of 10, and if you're one of the few that missed out, for whatever reason, you should definitely pick this one up. It's funny too, because some people were upset that there was no DLC for this game, and I can understand wanting more of what's pretty amazing, but like, just keep playing the game and you'll basically get DLC. There's so much to explore and do. This game could take you the entire year if you wanted it to. And for some of my friends, sounds like that's exactly what happened. 2023, I have a confession.
What now?
I played the Final Fantasy XVI demo before I beat Tears of the Kingdom, and now I want to play it right now.
I have other great games for you, you know.
Well, just finished Tears of the Kingdom. See you in July. It's interesting to me seeing how controversial Final Fantasy XVI is. This is an absolutely fantastic game. It's basically what Final Fantasy XIV would be like if it was a single-player experience. Even some of the enemy animations are straight out of 14, and I know this because I saw ninja-like enemies in 16 that were doing things that my character as a ninja does in 14. But I understand not everybody jumped on the 14 train. For real though, if you could swing it, 14 is Final Fantasy in spades. Personally, this ended up being one of my favorite Final Fantasy. It wasn't perfect, but Yoshi P and team nailed the characters, the music, the lore, and the story of this game without a hint of cheese. Even lines you would expect to include some cheese somehow pulled it off. The voice actors in this game had some of the best performances of 2024. I don't care what the Game Awards say. Clive, Jill, Sid were some of the most memorable characters with so much depth and grit to them. And Torgal is the best boy in any game. Fight me. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't played this game, but the progression of this game, characters, themes, again, Torgal himself were so good. I did every single side quest, and I am so glad I did. Yes, it can slow things down sometimes, and I won't argue that the pacing was perfect, but to me, the reward was the depth of the lore and the character development. As for the battle system, admittedly, it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't bad. I definitely prefer a battle system like the Final Fantasy VII Remake if you're gonna go with more of a modern take. But that being said, once you get the hang of some of these combos and get some of the later powers for Clive, it could be incredibly fun to completely destroy everything with a perfectly executed combo. I think this game gets way too little credit for what it did right. I have always loved Final Fantasy for the story and for the music and for the characters. And if you like Final Fantasy for the same reasons, I'd say you should absolutely give this one a go if you haven't already. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. I'm definitely excited to see what's next for the mainline Final Fantasy series.
Are you done with Final Fantasy yet? You ready to play any of these other games?
2023, you just need to slow down.
I have an Etrian Odyssey remaster, bunch of Pikmin games, Story of Seasons, Master Detective Archive Raincode.
How am I supposed to play all these games with games like Final Fantasy XVI and Tears of the Kingdom?
You just need to get good.
Final Fantasy XVI does make me want to go back and play some old RPGs I loved again.
Wait, what?
I think I'm gonna buy an Xbox now.
Okay.
Got one. Now I can go back and play Lost Odyssey and a bunch of other old games.
You are such an idiot. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you are the problem?
Man, it was such a good idea to get my 360, PS2, and PS3 set up again.
If you're done messing around, I have a few other ones. Pikmin 4? Or how about the endgame of the Trails series, Trails into Reverie?
Man, I haven't been brave enough to get through that entire series.
Don't you have all of them on Steam? What are you waiting for?
I'm just too busy. Look how many games you keep throwing at me. Ooh, I should get this thing fixed. Do you remember the original Fire Emblem game? Oh, so good.
Can you believe this guy? Baldur's Gate 3, Red Dead Redemption, Armored Core 6. Are any of these gonna bring you back from your crusty past? It's 2023, Brandon.
Is that a SNES RPG style indie game?
What? You mean Sea of Stars?
Yo, let's go! After Chained Echoes, I was so on board with another indie darling like this, especially when I found out Yasunori Mitsuda was involved with the soundtrack. Between the two, it's honestly hard to say which one I liked better if you had to pick one, but since Chained Echoes was technically a 2022 release, I'm gonna say Sea of Stars is the must-play indie game of the year, having not played any other indie games this year. This game is a beautiful throwback to the SNES era of RPGs, but it brings a number of enhancements and fun with it. The story is charming, the world is beautiful, the game is just downright fun. I cannot recommend this one enough, especially to anyone who loves this style of game already. I'm super bummed I missed the Kickstarter to get that physical copy, but apparently I Am 8-Bit will have something up to pre-order this year, so here's to hoping we get something. The battle system in this game is what really stood out to me because it takes from games like Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger to introduce timed attacks and defense as well as cross-character specials, which made the battles that much more fun and engaging. You also have these locks on enemies that show certain attack types, allowing you to completely cancel attacks if you can meet the requirements in time, which made boss fights super fun because it was more like a puzzle as you were going through the battle. That, alongside the brilliantly done music and surprisingly twisty story, made me absolutely love this game. If you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts on this beauty of a game, you can check out this video.
Alright, you did it. Now what games do you want to go back and check out?
Oh man, you remember when I mentioned Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance? It is so nostalgic playing this on the SP again.
Yeah, they just re-released it on the NSO too, but that's not what I meant. I meant games from me.
They released Fire Emblem on the Nintendo Switch Online service?
Games like...
That's it. I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I need an avenue to talk about this stuff.
What is wrong with you?
Alright, this is a bit of a weird one, but I kind of rediscovered the NSO in 2023. Should you play retro games on the Nintendo Switch Online service instead of new games from the year? It's up to you, but yes. While this service isn't perfect, I think some of the games here, in addition to some of the emulation features like save states, can be easily overlooked. And some of these games are expensive, so being able to boot them up on the Switch for that price with all the extra features is pretty amazing. For example, while I did enjoy fixing the old SP and playing Fire Emblem, and parts are surprisingly cheap for anyone thinking about it, I found out that on the NSO, there's still the mine glitch, which I loved using in the port of Baten. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this on your first playthrough if you've never played Fire Emblem before, but if you've played through it more than 10 times like me, then go for it. But on the Game Boy, if you die in the arena during this chapter, after spending hours and hours and hours grinding up some of your characters, it's kind of the worst. But on the Switch, those save states make a huge difference. And if you want to see some of the games I loved on the service in 2023, check out this video here.
If you purchased an Xbox Series X instead of repurchasing an Xbox 360 like a moron, you could be playing Starfield right now.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And it has been a while since I picked up a Bethesda game.
And the Series X can play your old 360 games, by the way. Well, if not that, you have Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, Rune Factory 3, Fae Farm, F-Zero 99, Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest The Adventures of Dai. Surely one of these will satiate you.
I'm feeling nostalgic.
Here's Baten Kaitos 1 and 2. But I won't give you English voice acting.
Baten Kaitos was one of my favorite games on the GameCube. After I was introduced to RPGs on the PS2, I began my search on the GameCube, which led me to games like Tales of Symphonia, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, and Baten Kaitos. I had never played anything like it. I loved the beautiful world, the characters, and even that card-based battle system was a lot of fun for me. I never did play Origins though because I had no idea it was a thing until well after it came out. So I was so glad to see these coming back. If you haven't noticed, I'm a bit of a sucker for remasters and remakes for this very reason. Why? Because it gives me an excuse to experience some of these gems that I missed without having to pay an arm and a leg to do so. And in handheld, no less. Now, these games admittedly may not be for everybody, but they are classic RPGs with a bunch of modern improvements that make the grind faster and help you progress through the story. The card-based battle system focuses on building combos with cards you can manage in a deck. As the game goes on, you get access to more packs, you can trade cards, and can transform objects into cards for quest purposes. It can make the battles quite challenging if you don't have well-balanced decks or if you're not quite figuring out how it's working, but there are a plethora of online resources to help with that, and it's definitely worth a shot if you haven't checked these out before. And there is a physical copy for these as well.
Scratch that incessant nostalgia itch yet?
Who do you think I am? Wasn't there some Pokemon thing happening sometime soon? I'm feeling that familiar fall-time need to play a Pokemon game.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has DLC out now.
Oh, sweet! Let me check it out.
2 hours later.
Oof, boy, this chugs. And I'm kind of bored. Maybe I'll check it out later.
I have a lot for you in October.
Pokemon Soul Silver it is!
I just can't with you. And if you guys want to see what he thought about Pokemon Soul Silver, check this video out. Alright, Brandon, you nut. I'm gonna win you over with these last few months of the year. You ready? Disguise 7, Silent Hope, Wargroove 2, Sonic Superstars, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2.
Good grief, slow down. I haven't even caught up on all the rest yet.
And whose fault is that? I'm not bitter. Front Mission 2 Remake, Detective Pikachu, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection.
Are you trying to kill me?
Yes! Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Wonder. Oops.
It's okay. Christmas and my birthday are coming up. I have a Christmas list and a birthday list. You need to go talk to my wife.
Alright, you got Star Ocean, The Second Story R, Persona 5 Tactica, and Super Mario RPG this month. What did your wife get you?
Star Ocean, my friend got me Super Mario RPG. I'm super pumped. Holy smokes, I got this game for my birthday, and it sets the standard for what a remake should look like. Square Enix put in a level of effort here that they certainly should have for Chrono Cross. I still love the Chrono Cross remaster though, no matter what anyone says. Not only did the art style in this, something similar to the 2D HD style, look incredible, but they added all of these quality of life features to the gameplay. There's new character private actions, and more that just makes this an insanely good experience. Star Ocean 2 is already one of the best in the entire series, which admittedly isn't that hard to be, but this remake takes it to the next level. Now, I love the Star Ocean series for the private actions and skill mechanics that can absolutely break the game, and it's all here in beautifully polished condition. The new character art looks fantastic, and this whole experience is a breath of fresh air. And just like old times, I spent way too much time to get the best weapon and items to craft the best weapons, just so I could bulldoze through the rest of the game. It's not even a particularly hard game where you need to do that, but if you give me an RPG I can break, I'm gonna break it. If your only experience with this franchise is the last two, do yourself a favor and pick this one up. Star Ocean 1, 2, and 3 are the series' best, old Tri-Ace at their best, and this is arguably the best in the series. Though personally, Star Ocean 3 is my favorite, and I really hope that that game gets the same level of love that this game got. Because you know what else came out this month? The PlayStation Portal! And you know what I tried doing? Playing Star Ocean 3 on it. And it was not a good experience. So a more native remaster like this on the Switch or the Switch 2, make it happen, Nintendo. Or Steam. Sony just needs to figure something out with that thing. And after I enjoyed that beautiful world of Star Ocean 2, a good friend of mine decided to send over Super Mario RPG. As much as I've tinkered with this game over the years, I've never committed to seeing it all the way through. And while I feel like I should be ashamed of that, this version of the game was an incredible way to play. This game was quirky, it was fun, it was incredibly well paced, and ended up being one of my favorite games of the year. You're thrown right into the game with your classic Mario needs to save Peach from Bowser cliche when a new enemy enters the fray that knocks them all out. From there, Mario does his thing, and apparently he's this like celebrity as you go about the different towns and locations, which make for some incredibly fun and charming interactions with the different characters in the world. You also get Geno and Mallow introduced as Mario RPG specific characters. Geno for Smash, am I right? And you even get Bowser in the party. I'm not gonna lie, this game made me want more Mario Bowser team-ups because Bowser was hilarious and genuinely well written, and the banter between the two was amazing. Frenemies is the best way. That, and this is one of the most dad-friendly games of all time. You got kids and you can't play Persona 5 Royal for 6 million hours? Probably need to check your priorities. Then play this. It's fast, engaging, great battle mechanics, and wraps up in about 10 to 15 hours. Oh, and don't forget to find all those Final Fantasy Easter eggs, including the secret boss. That was absolutely amazing. Those put a huge grin on my face.
Are you playing Yu-Gi-Oh?
I'm sorry, it's still so good and I'm addicted.
Look, my time is almost up and I just don't care anymore. Here's Dragon Quest Monsters and a bunch of other games that you're gonna ignore. Now go watch the Game Awards and see how many games you missed, you insane hooligan.
Dragon Quest Monsters? For me? I've never played this series before. I'm so in.
Wait, you're actually gonna play something that I suggested first? There may be hope for you yet.
I honestly didn't think I would end the year with Dragon Quest Monsters, but curiosity just got the best of me. I already knew games like Spider-Man 2, Mario Wonder, Persona 5 Tactica would be winners for me, but this was a game that just didn't get a ton of coverage, and it sparked my interest. There was a few channels here and there that talked about it, and I was hearing mostly decent things, but in a year so full of heavy hitters, this one probably got passed right over for most people. But not for this guy. This game was way more fun than I expected. It gave me some major Pokemon vibes, but the mechanic that kept me hooked was the fusing mechanic. In a Persona-like fusion system, you can choose monsters to combine for a new monster, or even the same monster, and transfer over skill points based on level, and possibly even get a higher ranked monster or starred monsters. Getting my shiny hunting itch scratched with this one. Like I mentioned before, I love breaking games. If there is an opportunity to get ahead in an RPG, find a broken weapon, manipulate a system to my advantage, or just grind like a madman, I'm all for it. And this game let me do that in droves. If you're smart about your fusing, you can get some ridiculous monsters that are way higher rank than anything you have at the time, and or just put out some insane damage, like my Cannon Brawler friend. I refused him several times to get a starred version, maxed out his skill tree, and leveled him to 40 for his extra ultra crafty banger skill, which improves his Kaboomal attack, which is an AoE attack, and he basically one-shots everything, well into the game. And he's not even a high-ranking monster. The story was passable, I enjoyed it, with just enough references to Dragon Quest IV that I was interested in seeing what happened, kept me going, but it's really the monsters and the battle mechanics that shine. In battle, you can increase speed and set up tactics to auto-battle, or manually choose attacks for your monsters. And then you can scout the monsters, kind of like catching them in Pokemon, to recruit them. I feel like Pokemon could learn a thing or two from how this game adds so much efficiency into the battle system. All that said, there are definitely some performance issues. I'm not sure why Square opted to add things like rain effects in some of these areas, but they can introduce slowdown here and there. But honestly, it was never enough to really take me out of the experience, and the battles ran just fine. So if that all sounds good to you and you missed it, it's definitely worth a playthrough.
You know, 2023, you were a really good year. A great year, even. I really appreciate how many awesome games you brought us.
Yeah, that you ignored. You kept ignoring me for like 2004 and 2006.
I mean, if you just got some of these games remastered, I wouldn't have ignored you. But seriously, I'll get to these. Just throw them in that pile over there.
Whatever. So what are you gonna play now? You have a lot of catching up to do, you know.
Oh yeah, I do have a bit of catching up to do. Well, I'll probably jump on some of these like Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Wonder, Persona 5 Tactica. I love these guys.
That sounds good, but heads up. 2024 is going to bring you Persona 3 Reload and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Then I've abandoned all hope, and these games will die in the backlog.
Why are you the way you are?
I'm coming for you, 2024, and this time I'll be able to keep up with the power of friendship. What friends? Mom,